Bobby, the Not-So-Great Blue Heron by K. Stanley Young. Copyright 2011, all rights reserved. Any resemblance to actual events, locales, or persons living or dead is entirely intentional. Cover and illustrations by K. Stanley Young. Heron carving by Guy Leslie. Dedicated to my family. Contents. Chapter 1, Bobby Makes a Plan. Chapter 2, The Bait Shop Dock. Chapter 3, Bobby Makes His Move. Chapter 4, Another World Inside. Chapter 5, The Old Man and the Cat. Chapter 6, Claude Alonzo. Chapter 1. Bobby had just about had it. Life as a great blue heron was not all it was cracked up to be. In fact, there was nothing great about it. All of the favorite things of any normal blue heron were not Bobby's favorite things at all. Things like fishing, wading around swamps, hanging out on the piers and rocks all day were okay, but they were getting old. So Bobby had made up his mind. He wanted to do something different. He didn't want to live like this anymore. After all, he didn't really have any family or friends. He'd lost both of his parents when he was little in a terrible storm over the lake. His parents were blown away. He never saw them again, yet somehow Bobby had survived. As far as animal friends, he didn't know any other blue heron. It was hard to make friends. There was, however, an old couple who walked the pier at least once a week that he had grown fond of because they always brought him a little bag of cat food with them, and they would throw pieces to him. They weren't much good at conversation. Most people thought animals were stupid, and most animals thought the same of people. But these people did seem to be more intelligent. For instance, how did they know that his favorite thing in the whole world was cat food? Ever since he'd tried some out of the bowl sitting outside the bait shop's back door, he couldn't stop thinking about it. The old couple were kind of funny looking in their big, thick eyeglasses. They reminded Bobby of a pair of old owls his parents used to know. The old couple lived in a very nice house, a block away from the lake. Bobby had flown by one day looking through a window into their living room and saw a life-size wood carving of a blue heron. It started Bobby thinking. Chapter 2. Bobby stood by the river daydreaming of his big plan to escape his humdrum blue heron life when he was startled by a white bass breaking the surface of the water. Seeing the fish, it made Bobby hungry. But not for white bass. No, the taste of cat food still hung in his mind, making his beak water. He wondered if the bowl at the back of the bait shop was still there. He decided to stretch his wings and do a little flyby of the shop and have a look. He flexed his knees and gently sprang off the edge of the pier, spreading full his enormous wings in order to catch as much air as he could. Swooping low, almost grazing the surface of the river, then up, banking right, and with two powerful flaps, he was soaring upriver toward the bait shop and his beloved cat food. Let the bowl be full, he prayed. Please let the bowl be full. As Bobby approached the dock of the bait shop and his beloved golden nuggets, he was distracted by an irritating noise below. Just to his left, slowly making its way down the river, heading for the lake, was a small, open boat with two men on board, running the outboard motor wide open, making a dreadful racket. The men were bouncing and being splashed, and Bobby thought, what trouble to go to just to catch a few fish. All that fishing equipment with their nasty, sharp hooks. He remembered getting tangled up with some fishing line once while wading offshore. One of those hooks had pierced his leg, and he had a devil of a time getting it out. He was thankful that great blue herons didn't have to fish like that. A good sharp beak was better than a flimsy old fishing pole any day, he thought. Good for removing fish hooks from your leg, too. He flapped his wings one more time and glided close to the west bank of the river, approaching the bait shop dock. Bobby looked at the left mooring pool, and sure enough, just below it was the bowl. No one was on the dock, and the back door was closed, so a closer look was possible. Bobby made a quick turn, and tilting the front edges of his massive wings up, Creating maximum drag, he stopped abruptly 2 feet above the edge of the dock and gracefully landed right next to the bowl. He looked towards the door and then scanned the rest of the dock. There were no people and no cat, all clear for a landing. He quickly plucked 2 nuggets from the bowl and tilted his head back, letting them slide down his throat. Yummy. Just as Bobby was helping himself to more of the cat food, the back door of the bait shop flew open and the man who ran the bait shop with a broom in his hands came lunging towards Bobby, yelling, "Hey, shoo, get out of here, you!" swinging the broom as he charged. Bobby sprang into the air and with 3 huge thrusts of his wings, actually flew up and backwards, just barely out of reach of the swinging broom, then sharply banking to the left, down towards the river's surface. 2 more powerful flaps of his wings and he was soaring upriver, his heart pounding. He glided a while, calming himself. Some people, Bobby thought to himself, they could be so violent sometimes. He remembered his mother used to say that it would be their eventual downfall, that violent nature. After that display, Bobby didn't doubt it. Bobby missed his parents. Almost 4 years ago, they made the annual spring trip back up north to Lake Erie where Bobby had been born. Bobby couldn't resist the powerful urge to migrate, being young and strong, but he worried his parents had grown too old and frail to make the trip again. But the urge to migrate was still strong in his parents too. They had all just made it back to the lake when a powerful storm separated them and they were lost. He searched for them the following year, but he never found them. Bobby put that out of his mind as he flew upriver a while, then banked to the right and soared over the town. The tops of the buildings below looked like the tops of small boxes from this altitude. He decided to fly over the old, nearsighted couple's neighborhood and see what he could see. He flew straight up their street, far above the massive maple trees that lined both sides, and glided low enough as he approached their house to get a quick look in the side window. He could still see the head of the heron carving through the window, right where he had seen it before. He flew to the end of the street that made an abrupt turn to the right just before the lake shore. He continued over the water, made a wide 180-degree turn, then flew back up the street over the houses' backyards. There on the patio of the old couple sat the lady with a large gray and cream-colored tabby cat on her lap. The cat was enjoying being petted. Bobby could tell by the way its tail waved back and forth as the old woman's hand gently stroked his back. One of them just tried to brain me with a broom, but here's one who's giving a massage to a cat, thought Bobby. He would probably never understand the human species, but he did feel that the female of the species certainly appeared to be much more civilized than the male. He flew by and then turned right, flying towards the lagoon, where he glided to a slow landing in the shallow water. He waded into the shadows of a low-hanging willow and concentrated on catching a fish, since he was still hungry, but cat food was not on today's menu, it seemed. He slowed his breathing and looked into the shallow waters. Perfectly still, he waited until he saw a shimmer of scales just beneath the surface. Like an arrow springing from a bow, Bobby's long beak broke the surface of the water and pierced the fish just behind the gills. He lifted his prize, flipped it in the air just enough to grasp its head first with his open beak, then with a couple of gulps he swallowed the small bluegill whole. The part about fishing he hated the most was swallowing a still wriggling fish, trying to spread its fins as it went down. It was not a pleasant sensation. But how else could he live? There just wasn't enough cat food around to sustain him. Bobby started thinking about his crazy plan again. Tonight, he thought. Tonight he would make a little house call. Just the thought of it made his heart start to pound faster. Was he crazy? Would any sane bird of any kind purposely enter a human house, especially a 4-foot-tall bird? He was obviously going quite mad. Chapter 3. Bobby spent some time digesting his dinner and resting on the side of the lagoon, in the privacy of some tall grass. Over and over again he went over his plan, making certain that he hadn't overlooked any detail or any possibility. He would wait until dark and land in the backyard, enter the back door, which was always left open long enough to allow the cat to come in for the night. He would go directly to the living room and hide behind the carving of the blue heron and wait until everyone was asleep. He would proceed to the kitchen and search for the cat food, which he was sure he could find without any problem. It would no doubt be on the floor or possibly on a shelf, just high enough for the cat to reach with a short jump. Some of these old houses had window seats where cats liked to sit and watch the smaller birds. Cats were considered dangerous by the smaller birds, but Bobby hardly thought them to be a threat. His dagger-like beak was more than a match for any cat's tooth or claw. He never had to test this theory before, as any cat that he had ever been near in the past would run away from him as fast as their legs could carry them. He scared the bait shop cat one day so much that he nearly jumped into the river. Bobby slipped into sleep for a while, dreaming of cat food. When he awoke, the moon was shining brightly in the clear sky overhead. It was a perfect night for his plan. He took off, flying low over the lagoon and climbing higher, turning toward the old house that was on the next street over from the street by the lagoon. He flew just high enough to clear the trees that lined the back of their yard and glided to a landing right in the yard, facing their back door. Sure enough, it stood open, just enough for the cat to enter and open enough for Bobby to slip inside too. He walked slowly across the patio and paused right next to the door opening. He listened for any people or cat noises coming from inside. All was quiet. Well, he thought, it's now or never, and with 2 steps, one on the back step and the next on the door jamb, he slowly squeezed his body inside the house. Chapter 4. Bobby knew the second he stepped inside the back door of the old, nearsighted couple's home that he had entered another world. After all, he had never in his life been inside a house before. Bobby's first impressions. Warmer than outside, smelling of spicy, flowery smells. His feet were dry and warm. Every step he took as he went into the kitchen was soft, warm, and dry. The floor had a soft, fuzzy blanket on it. The whole floor. As he entered what looked like a dining room with a small table and 4 chairs around it, he noticed lots of objects he had never seen before. There was a large box-shaped thing, taller than Bobby, with a small shelf running across the front. It was narrow but very wide, this box. As he got closer to it, he saw the shelf was made up of a long row of little white rectangular boxes with another row of shorter black rectangular boxes on top of the white ones, arranged in groups of 3s and then 2s that ran the entire length of the shelf. Bobby touched one of the little black boxes with the end of his beak, and it sunk into the row of white boxes, making a noise, like the sound of the foghorn on the lighthouse. Bobby jumped back and held very still, listening. He heard snoring coming from above. There was a second floor where the old couple slept. His was a loud, deep, snorting kind of snore, and hers was a higher-pitched, buzzing noise. Bobby slowly walked into the living room, where he could see the silhouette of the blue heron carving standing in front of the window curtain. Bobby knew that if his plan was to succeed, this heron carving was the key to his success. He slowly walked over to the window where it stood facing left, to see if it was the same size as he was. It was exactly the same size, Bobby noted with relief. He slipped behind the blue-painted wooden statue and struck a pose, mirroring that of the fake heron. There, thought Bobby, if anyone were to look over here, especially in the dark, if they just happened to be nearsighted, they would never notice him. Bobby adjusted the angle of his neck a little to more closely match that of his wooden twin. When the light at the top of the stairs came on, Bobby froze. As his heart clamored inside his chest, someone was coming downstairs. Bobby's theory was about to be put to the test. Chapter 5. Slowly, 2 slipper-shod feet came down the carpet-covered stairway, one step at a time. It was the old man, wearing plaid flannel pajamas and a blue robe tied at the waist. There was just enough light from the nightlight at the top of the stairs for Bobby to see that the man wasn't wearing his eyeglasses. He was kind of feeling his way down the stairs, holding on to the banister. Bobby slowed his breathing, concentrating on nothing else. This was the method he had used since he was a fledgling, when catching fish, which he had learned from watching his father. You had to be as still as could be. Fish could sense any vibrations in the water and would swim away if you moved so much as a muscle. One twitch and there goes dinner. But Bobby had learned from one of the best fisher heron of them all, and Bobby was good at fishing. He just didn't care for fish, which explained why he was now standing in a living room of humans, trying not to be seen by one of them, who was now nearing the bottom of the stairs, about 15 feet away from Bobby. Bobby slowly exhaled through his beak nostrils, watching the old man come to the landing and making a right turn into the living room. "Whiskers, are you home?" he called softly as he walked very slowly towards the back of the house, toward the back door that was still propped open. Bobby watched intently as the old man walked out of sight into the kitchen. He heard the back door glide shut, with an aluminum rattle and click. Then he heard the heavy wooden door close. Then Bobby heard another door open and the tinkling of glass against glass, then the rustle of paper. The old man was eating something. Bobby could smell something very sweet, and it made his stomach growl. He heard the old man close that same door, and then he reappeared, walking slowly back toward the bottom of the stairs. He was holding a glass of milk. He stopped suddenly and looked towards Bobby. "Is that you, Whiskers?" the man asked. Then Bobby felt something tickling his ankle. He looked down, and there was the cat purring and rubbing up against his legs, walking back and forth, brushing up against him each time. Bobby couldn't stand to have anything touch his ankles. It was one of the reasons he hated wading in the swamp. He fought to stay still while the cat rubbed against him. "Come on, Whiskers, let's go to bed," the man called. The cat looked up at Bobby and then ran towards the old man and up the stairs, quick as a wink. Bobby let out a sigh of relief. One more second of tickling and Bobby would have lost his cool. The old man followed the cat up the stairs slowly, one step at a time. Bobby held still a while longer until he saw the light at the top of the stair dim. He could hear the man getting back in bed with a groan. Bobby finally dared to move, and he let out a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, "Okay, where do you suppose they keep the cat food?" He slowly stepped out from behind the carved heron statue and walked back towards the kitchen. There would be a bowl, a dish, or some sort on the floor somewhere. He searched the floor of the kitchen, but found nothing. He checked the back hall by the back door. Still nothing. There was a room off the hall that was dark inside. Bobby took a whiff. The unmistakable aroma of cat food wafted across Bobby's nostrils. Bobby looked towards a small window of the window seat, and there was a blue bowl brimming with little golden nuggets. He walked into the room, approached the bowl, and very gingerly picked up a nugget with the end of his beak. "Hey, bird legs, what are you doing in here?" a voice from behind him said. Bobby gasped, and the nugget shot down his throat, making him gag and cough. He looked around, and there, at the doorway, sat the cat, smiling at him, twitching his long, fluffy tail in the air. Chapter 6. The cat sat between Bobby and the only door in this small room where the cat food bowl was. In order for Bobby to get back to the door, he would have to get past this cat first. Bobby had no great fear of cats, as he was much larger than any cat, and one good poke with his long dagger-like beak would send most any cat running. This cat, however, obviously had no fear of Bobby, or respect for that matter. Bird legs indeed, thought Bobby. I should teach this rude cat some manners. "Listen, you hairball," said Bobby to the smiling, purring cat, who sat there slowly waving his long, fluffy tail back and forth. "If you know what's good for you, you had better apologize for that insult, or I shall run you through with my long, sharp beak." "Oh, come on, take it easy, Legs. I mean, you do have the longest bird legs I've ever seen. But okay, if you don't want to be called Bird Legs, then what's your name?" "Bobby," he said, straightening his long neck and his legs to appear even taller. "And what is your name? Whiskers or something, I believe I heard your man call you?" "Well, that's what my people call me, but my real name is Claude Alonzo." You can call me Claus for short. It's what other cats call me, and it sounds kind of cool, don't you think? Yes, it's a very impressive name, Bobby replied, thinking it best not to insult this frisky feline who still had the door blocked. So, tell me, Claus, what flavor cat food is that in your bowl over there? Assuming that is your bowl, asked Bobby, suddenly thinking, could there be more of them in the house? Yeah, that's my bowl, and it's tuna flavored. But why do you care? Well, I'll share with you a secret about myself. I am a tuna-flavored cat food fan. I just love the stuff, can't get enough of it, and would do just about anything to get some, which explains my little intrusion into your house. I suppose now that you know why I'm here, you will scamper upstairs and wake up your people who will undoubtedly beat me senseless with a tennis racket or baseball bat or shoot me with a gun or something. Bobby really didn't think the man capable of such things, but these humans could be so unpredictable. Claus laughed. I doubt that's what he would do, even if he had a tennis racket or a baseball bat, or a gun. But you got nothing to worry about. He doesn't even know how to work a fly swatter. No, both he and the old gal are very gentle and blind as bats. But you know, you are locked in here until one of them opens that back door again, and they don't usually let me out until morning. Unless you can work a doorknob with that beak of yours, which I doubt. Bobby hadn't thought about that. He was just going to help himself to some golden nuggets of joy and then let himself out. He figured he could easily work the latch on the storm door. He didn't even know about the big heavy wooden door with the round doorknob on it until Claus mentioned it. How indeed would he exit? Listen, said Claus, why not just relax, have a little of my cat food, and just stay the night? In the morning they always leave the door open for about a half an hour until they know I'm out, then they close it. You'll have plenty of time to get out then. Besides, I've never talked with a big bluebird like you before, and I wouldn't mind getting to know a little more about you. You seem like a pretty good guy. Bobby was glad that this cat wasn't acting threatening anymore towards him, but he was a little suspicious about this change in nature. Do you mean you are inviting me to share your cat food? You want to give me some cat food? Just like that? No strings attached? Well, said Claus, there is one thing I'd like to ask you. Go ahead, ask away, Bobby said. Here's what I don't get about you, Bobby. I know for a fact that you big bluebirds are experts at catching fish. I've seen you catch fish, as a matter of fact. Sometimes I like to go down by the water and watch you. It's amazing that beak of yours is like lightning. Those fish don't even see it coming until wham, it's too late. By then, they're sushi. Well, yes, I am considered to be quite good at it, Bobby blushed. Okay, so if you can catch fish, which in my book are the most delicious, most delectable, tastiest, yummiest, downright heavenly treats in the world, then why in the name of Mother Nature would you want cat food instead? What are you, nuts? Claus, my dear boy, do you have any idea how disgusting it is to have a live fish, still wriggling, slide down your throat? Don't get me wrong, I love the taste of fish, but the scales and the fins and the wriggling, yuck! It almost makes me gag just thinking about it. Well, that's why I like to fillet them before I eat them, Claus said. Fillet them? What's fillet mean? Asked Bobby. That's something I saw the old man do when he caught a fish. First you skin and bone him, so that all that's left is a nice pile of fish meat. No scales, no fins, no bones, and definitely no wriggling. That's the way to eat fish, my friend. Well, that sounds wonderful, said Bobby. Can you show me how to fillet a fish? Why, sure I can, but I think that beak of yours is better at spearing than it is at slicing. So, that's why all this hospitality. You want me to catch you fish. Hey, Claus said, you ever heard the old saying, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine? You catch the fish, I'll help you clean and fillet them, and I'll supply the cat food appetizers. What do you say? Do we have a deal? We could be a great team. Bobby thought for a moment and said, I must say that is an interesting proposition. Why, we can try our partnership in the morning. What do you say we have a bit of cat food right now and we can talk strategy? Have you ever been down to the lagoon? There's excellent bluegill fishing down there. Or do you prefer white bass? White bass! Exclaimed Claus. Bobby, my blue buddy, this feels like the start of a beautiful friendship. Step on over to my bowl and help yourself. Have as much as you like, 'cause there's more where that came from. There's a bag in the closet as big as a pillow. And so Bobby the blue heron and Claus the cat became lifelong friends and partners. Bobby had all the cat food he could ever want, plus a warm, dry place to rest at night, while Claus had more fresh fish than he'd ever dreamed possible. Best of all, they both had someone to talk to for the first time in their lives, and they hoped for the rest of their lives. Bobby, the Not-So-Great Blue Heron by K. Stanley Young. Copyright 2011, all rights